I want to show you how to communicate clearly with scatter plots in 8 simple steps. Step number 1 is to create a scatter plot using your own data, a data set you have that you want to tell an important story with. Then step number 2 is to remove the grid lines and borders. I'll show you why I was doing this in step number 3, because now I want to add back reference lines. This is a personal preference, but I love to add reference lines to delineate between the different quadrants within a scatter plot. And these are going to dynamically move as my data changes. Then in step number 4, I'm going to format these axes. So if you look at the X and Y axis, these have shorter, more formatted values in them. If we jump back to step number 3, you see how much space those are taking up? And so I like to format them in a more simplified way to create more space for the visual itself, the data ink. Then in step number 5, I'm going to actually increase the size of the marks. Again, I'm trying to draw my audience eyes to those different values. But when I do that, they start to overlap a little bit as well. So let me show you how I handle that in step number 6. So in step number 6, I'm actually going to add a little transparency to the circles, the values in the scatter plot, and then a solid border around them. And that transparency allows for me to visually see the clustering where they're starting to overlap. So I love to add transparency within the values in scatter plots. And then step number 7, if you have it, adding a target and even calling out the quadrant or the area that you want the audience to focus on. Maybe this is the good performing quadrant or the negative performing quadrant. And then finally, in step number 8, if you want to really draw out the emotion, add some color. And in this case, I'm showing all the off target or the 3 quadrants that fall outside the on target area, and I'm lighting them up in red. You could use a red or an orange, or if you want to be more subtle about it and not create as much emotion for your audience, you might try a blue or even a dark gray. So that is 8 simple steps to transform your scatter plots and ensure you're drawing out the most important stories in the data.